Today's case is a stark example of just how much one's actions can have on another's well-being. There's a saying that you can never truly know what someone is going through, so be kind to those around you. But in this case, Renee's closest friend knew exactly what she was going through and used that to make her miserable. This case is full of lies, deception, and manipulation, and the way it all played out will truly shock and devastate you to your core. With that being said, let's just jump right into today's case. Renea Marsden was born on October 15, 1992 in Sydney, New South Wales, Australia to Teresa Marsden and Jamie Deeth. When Renee was around 2 years old, her parents did separate, and her mother went on to marry Renee's stepfather, Mark Marsden. From there, Mark and Teresa went on to have 3 more children, Luke, Jake, and Monique. Then, by the time Renee was 18 years old, she changed her last name to Mark's last name. By all accounts, it seemed that Renee had a normal upbringing, living with her mom and stepdad, who loved her and did their best to raise her. I'm not sure how close she was with her biological father or if they had really any sort of relationship. Renee was described as a very positive, bubbly person. She always saw the best in everyone and was a very glass half full kind of person. She made sure to look on the bright side of things, constantly trying to uplift everyone around her. She was honest, warm, and full of ambition. She wanted to grow up, get married, and have a family of her own one day. By 2005, Renee began high school at Mount St. Benedict's College. There, she met another student with whom she became fast friends, Camila. From the jump, though, it appeared to family and other friends of Renee's that Camila was not the best influence on her. Renee had once been this very outgoing, outspoken, confident young girl who did well in school and made sure to follow the rules. But after meeting Camila, the two became inseparable. They were in constant communication, texting or on the phone with each other 24/7. They wanted to hang out all the time, and eventually they started skipping school to hang out even more, and they would smoke cigarettes and do things like that. This, of course, caused her grades to drop dramatically, and along with that came a noticeable shift in Renee's personality. All of a sudden, her parents noticed that Renee seemed quite withdrawn and quiet. During this time, Renee started confiding in her cousin Stephanie that the relationship she had with her best friend Camila may not be all that it was cracked up to be. Camila could be mean and cruel towards Renee at times. Camila was often very critical of Renee, and when she found out she had a little crush on Camila's brother, she absolutely freaked out. Then Camila started pushing Renee to progress their relationship in a way that Renee wasn't necessarily comfortable with. Camila tried kissing Renee a few times and started writing her love letters. These letters were discovered by Teresa and Mark in Renee's room, and they were concerned. They noticed Renee's grades dropping, and they noticed the shift in her personality, and they were confident that it was due to Camila's influence. Due to this, Teresa and Mark started trying to find ways to get Renee to stop contacting Camila. They, along with her cousin Stephanie, sat down with her and told her that Camila's behaviors aren't okay and that she needs to create some boundaries. That didn't seem to work, so Teresa and Mark threatened to take her phone away if she didn't stop seeing Camila. At that point, they just felt like they needed to take more drastic action. But that didn't work either because Camila ended up just buying Renee a phone under her own cell phone plan, which was used only to contact her. And so for the years that followed, this codependent, toxic relationship continued. But then by 2009, Renee transitioned from her regular classes into a TAFE program to pursue hairdressing. This meant that although the friendship remained, Renee was seeing less and less of Camila because she was at a new school and was very busy and was meeting all sorts of new people. The year that followed, 2010, Renee met and started a relationship with a man named Angus. This was something that Camila was not happy about. Camila was constantly texting and calling Renee, most of which she ignored. Then she started following her around, showing up unannounced at her house and at her work to have a chat with her. Then Camila started seeing another hairdresser at the same salon where Renee was working and learning, making it so that she would see Renee even when she was busy with school. It got to the point that anytime Renee would be out and about, Camila would just show up. In one instance, Renee was with her mother at a local library when Camila showed up and confronted Renee. She told her that as long as she was going to continue ignoring her calls and texts, Camila was going to continue following her. Renee tried during this time to really distance herself from Camila because she was getting incredibly overwhelmed with dealing with her. It got to the point where Renee even stopped her studies at that salon because she wanted to avoid any possibility of even being in the same room as Camila. At this point, Renee was just over her friendship with Camila and wanted all of this to stop. So, that same year in 2009, she set up a meeting with Camila and their respective mothers at a local cafe. There, she informed Camila that she didn't want the friendship to continue. This caused Camila to become upset and desperate, grabbing Renee's arm and begging her to reconsider. She said, "You don't mean it. You don't mean it." But she did mean it. Renee tried leaving after this, but Camila physically wouldn't let her leave. As a result, Teresa had to step in and separate the girls, taking Renee to the car with her so they could just wash their hands of the situation. After this meeting, Camila continued calling Renee, and for the most part, she ignored most of the calls, but she did answer some of them. Many times, it was Camila just trying to weasel her way back into Renee's life. She would make comments about Angus, making snide remarks about their relationship and his appearance. But as this communication started, it seemed that Renee was slowly but surely allowing Camila back into her life. It appears that during that time, Renee and Camila would occasionally hook up or have some sort of sexual contact with one another. Court documents say that it appears that it was mostly initiated by Camila and Renee may have just participated to appease her. But clearly, this was someone that Renee cared deeply for. She obviously cared about Camila, and as much as she wanted to create that separation, Camila would not allow it, and Renee just couldn't let her go for good. Either way, by October of 2011, it was clear that Camila was getting sick of feeling like a second option for Renee. There were Facebook messages found where Camila expressed her frustration that Renee was continuing her relationship with Angus. She would say that she was sick of feeling second best, despite the fact that she knew Renee longer than Angus did. She said that she isn't just something on the side, and started asking Renee to make a choice. It was her or Angus. She couldn't have both. But Renee basically said that even if the two continued their friendship and maybe even these little, hookups they may have been doing, there would always be someone else. Whether it was Angus or somebody else, she would always be in another relationship. She could never just have her to herself. Based on everything we've learned up to this point, it appears that Camila had feelings towards Renee that Renee just couldn't or wouldn't reciprocate. Renee is clearly interested in dating the opposite sex, while Camila isn't, at least when it comes to Renee. Renee seems to want to appease Camila because maybe she did have feelings for her, but she knew that she would always want to be in a relationship with someone else because, again, she just didn't feel that romantic love towards Camila. By around November of 2011, Renee broke up with Angus. Pretty shortly after this relationship ended, Camila introduced Renee to a friend, Braden Spiteri. Apparently, Braden and Camila had previously dated, but they were on good terms, and Camila wasn't bothered by Renee talking to her ex, and Braden didn't seem bothered that Renee was his ex's best friend. The two started chatting, I believe, over Facebook initially, and Renee quickly grew a liking for him. But about a month after the two started exchanging messages, Braden told Renee that he was not going to be able to meet her in person for a long time. Braden said that he was actually going to prison. He would be serving a sentence for his involvement in a motorbike accident in which his best friend, Richie, was killed. He said that Camila had worked with his lawyer to get him a cell phone to use while in prison so he could continue to text Renee, but they could never meet in person because he waived his rights to have visitors in exchange for a shorter sentence. He was expecting to be released by August of 2012. Despite this hiccup, Renee and Braden continued their relationship. After their initial introduction, the two communicated on a daily basis, either through text messages or through Facebook messages. From there, the two started a very intense romantic relationship, which absolutely put Renee on an emotional roller coaster. By December of 2011, Renee told her mother about Braden, telling her that he was an inmate in prison, but that he wasn't a bad guy. Braden then reached out to Teresa himself to make that introduction and reassure her that he only had the best intentions and that he was excited to see how things would work out once he was released. Obviously, Teresa was not happy to hear about this new relationship. No mother would want her daughter to be dating some dude in prison, especially not one that she'd never met in person. But Teresa was very close with her daughter, and she knew that being overly critical or demanding that she stop seeing him would only hurt their mother-daughter relationship. So Teresa tried her best to have an open mind about the whole thing. By early the following year, in 2012, Renee informed her mother that she had fallen in love with Braden. In January, Renee even got a tattoo of the name B. Spiteri on her chest. For the months that followed, the two continued to text every single day. Sometimes Renee would even get to talk on the phone with Braden, where she would get to vocally speak with him, but he would actually respond over text because he said he wasn't allowed to actually speak on the phone, but he enjoyed hearing her voice. As they progressed, though, Braden started to become more and more jealous and possessive, constantly questioning Renee, asking her who she was with, and trying to control how she spent her time. He even sent rude messages to Angus, her ex, as well as other friends. At some point, Teresa did tell Renee that Braden was rude and arrogant and wasn't someone she should be in a relationship with, and said that the behaviors he was showing were not normal. She actually told her mom that she would end the relationship, but of course, that didn't actually happen. She continued this relationship online, eagerly anticipating his upcoming release from prison. However, when August 2012 came and went without Braden being released and without the chance to meet him in person, Renee spiraled. By September, Renee informed her mother that she had taken a large amount of medication to overdose herself and was now vomiting uncontrollably. Of course, as a result, Teresa immediately took Renee to the hospital, where staff learned that she was distraught because she learned that her boyfriend had spent a year in jail and was recently released. But as soon as he was released, he had a huge fight with his father. His father pressed charges, and now he was back in jail for another 2 years. Renee was incredibly upset that she didn't get to meet Braden, and now she was going to have to wait another 2 years for that opportunity. She said that she hasn't felt mentally stable in a while, and she's been having some issues at work which have been causing her to feel uneasy. This is all what led to her taking that medication. But at this point, she told hospital staff that she actually regrets this incident and is happy to be alive. After receiving treatment for her injuries and mental health, she was released from the hospital and allowed to return home. At this point, Renee ended her relationship with Braden and started a new relationship with a coworker, Ian. However, even after starting this new relationship, Renee never fully cut off contact with Braden. She continued texting him on a regular basis, telling those around her that she wanted to continue supporting Braden even if she wasn't officially dating him. By January of 2013, Renee and Ian became engaged, but still, she was continuing her communication with Braden, and Braden was not happy with Renee's situation. He started sending Ian threatening messages and made it known that the two were still very much in contact with each other. So by March of 2013, Ian gave Renee an ultimatum saying that it was him or Braden. If she was going to be with him, she needed to cut Braden off. And at this time, she chose Braden. She broke things off with Ian, left her job, and started a new one. From that point on, Renee was totally loyal to Braden. She didn't want to be with anyone else, remaining patient as she awaited his release. They continued to talk on a daily basis, with Braden continuing in his ways of being sweet and kind one day to being jealous and possessive the next. Renee was in a constant battle of wanting things to work out with Braden, telling him how much she loved him and cared for him, while also being confused about why Braden would have these episodes of just being rude and cold. It was such an emotional roller coaster for Renee. By July of 2013, Braden informed Renee that he wasn't going to be able to contact her at all that month due to court proceedings he would be attending. Throughout that month, Renee continued texting Braden and updating him on her day-to-day, but he obviously was not responding. This was not easy for Renee, who was telling friends and coworkers that she was having a really hard time having to go the whole month without talking to her boyfriend. But then by August 5th, 2013, Braden finally responded to her texts and they started communicating again. By around 1 p.m. that day, though, Renee and her coworker Joseph went to a local cafe for lunch. As they were walking, though, Renee told Joseph that Braden was being blunt and she was getting upset. Then she started crying and shaking uncontrollably. She showed Joseph a text she got from Braden, which read, "I think I need a break, and so do you." Renee spent the rest of her lunchtime crying. She was completely inconsolable, unable to get herself together. After lunch, Renee and Joseph returned to the office where she told coworkers that she needed to leave. She said that she was going to call the prison so she could speak with Braden once and for all. She left, and by 2:44 p.m., phone records show that she made a 90-second phone call to the prison, but she was unable to speak with Braden. By the time she made it home, Teresa could tell that Renee was upset. She asked her what was wrong, and Renee said that nothing was wrong. She went ahead and changed out of her work clothes and took off her makeup, which was her normal after-work routine. She then went to her room where she sent Braden multiple text messages, none of which he was replying to. Shortly after that, Braden actually texted Teresa saying, "Sort your daughter out," threatening to kill herself. Teresa asked Braden why she would do that, and Braden told her to ask Renee herself. Teresa then went to Renee and asked about it, to which Renee replied, "Don't be stupid, I would never do that." She then showed Renee the text she got from Braden, to which she said, "Mom, you don't have to worry anymore. I finally found out what he is all about." Teresa asked what she meant by that, but Renee just said, "Don't worry, Mom, it's all over." Renee and Braden continued texting during this time, with Renee telling him that she loved him. By 3:30 p.m., she sent her last text. At that same time, Teresa left the home to go pick up her kids from the bus stop before returning back home. Teresa saw that Renee was now up and getting dressed and putting on makeup. Renee told her mom that she was about to go out and have dinner with friends, but assured her that she wouldn't be out too late. Teresa then left the house again, taking 2 of her children to their swimming lessons and dropping off their youngest at their grandmother's house. During this time, Renee's phone indicated that she was using the internet for about an hour, most likely Facebook. After that, she left and arrived to Watson Bay by around 5:20 p.m. By 5:49 p.m., Teresa received a long, heartfelt text message from Renee. The text reads in part, "I love you so much. I'm sorry for everything and the pain I will now cause you, but I'll be okay. I'll still be here and around when you need to talk to me. Just call my name and I'll be there. You're the most amazing person and mother ever and my very best friend. I wasn't happy, and I need you to understand that it's okay. Don't let this ruin everyone else you need to take care of, okay? I need you to be strong for me. I'm not sure if Teresa saw this text right away because she had been at her child's swim practice when this text came in. She then left and then picked up her youngest child from her grandmother's house before heading to a friend's house with the kids. There, she had saw the text and showed her friend, who immediately became concerned and told Teresa to call the police, who showed up and met Teresa there shortly after. At the home, neither Teresa or the police found anything concerning, so they left. After police left by around 7:50 p.m., Teresa texted Renee's friend Camila, asking if she had heard from her. Camila said that she had spoken to her a bit ago via text, but hadn't heard from her since. At this time, Teresa had tried calling her a few times and wasn't able to reach her, so Camila tried as well, but neither of them were getting any answer. In fact, it appeared as if her phone had been switched off. After this, Camila decided to head to Teresa's so they could go out and search for Renee together. They headed to the local McDonald's, a friend's house, and a house where Camila said Braden's sister lived. But they could not find Renee at any of these places. By this point, Teresa and police alike were concerned for Renee's well-being, so they contacted her cell phone provider and found that Renee switched her phone off at 5:58 p.m. in the vicinity of Old South Head Road in an area called The Gap. Using this, police headed to that area and started the search for her car, and by 8:45 p.m., they found her car located on Military Road in Watson's Bay. However, they were unable to locate Renee herself. The following day, police started doing ground searches in the area where her car was found, alongside Teresa and Mark, who helped in any way they could. There, they located Renee's shoes, which had been left on a walking path that led from Military Road to Jacob's Ladder Reserve. They continued to search in that area via ground searches, aerial searches with helicopters, as well as dive searches in the water. But still, they could not find Renee anywhere. After police had found her car, they towed it and brought it back to the station to search. Inside the car, they found her wallet, which contained a photo collage of Braden and Renee, alongside the words, "I love you, baby," on the back of it. They found a cell phone in the car, which was actually not the cell phone she regularly used, or at least the one her mother knew about, but she did have communications with Braden on it. Also during this time, Teresa was also messaging Braden, asking him where Renee was and saying that she wanted answers. She was also texting back with Camila, who told her to stop blaming Braden. Camila said that she had spoken to Braden a few days prior, the same day that Renee was last seen, and he was getting really upset that people were blaming him when he really had no idea what was going on. But by this point, police were getting increasingly concerned for Renee's well-being. After searching through her phone and speaking with family members and friends, police learned about Renee and Braden's relationship, and they knew that this is where they needed to put their focus if they had any chance in finding her. So they searched through the phone that they found in Renee's car, which appeared to be a phone she really only used to communicate with Braden. They were also able to find CCTV footage from the area where they found her car, and on that footage, police uncovered the devastating, tragic truth about what happened to Renee. By 5:22 p.m. on August 5th, CCTV footage showed Renee at the Gap, where she sent a message to Braden as she walked around the area. She sent another 5 text messages for the 20 minutes that followed, but Braden was not responding to any of them. She then sat down on a brick wall, where she sent 3 more texts, all of which continued to go unanswered. By 5:48 p.m., as we know, Renee texted her mother that long paragraph about how much she loved her and wanted her to stay strong. By 5:51 p.m., footage shows Renee climbing over a fence at Jacob's Ladder, where she looked over the edge. A minute later, she received a text from Braden and replied again to this message, but he stopped answering after that. By 5:54 p.m., Renee is seen throwing that phone off the cliff before she climbed over the edge and made her way down until she disappears off camera. That was the last time she was seen. By 5:58 p.m., cell phone records indicate her phone was turned off. So based on this information, it appears that Renee went to that cliff with ideas of possibly taking her life. There, she must have contemplated for a while, maybe trying to get Braden to say or do something to convince her not to. But that didn't happen, and shortly after she arrived, she climbed down the cliff and took her own life. And to this day, her body has never been recovered. At this point, we pretty much know what happened. There wasn't technically any foul play involved in what directly caused her death. It's clear that she took her own life by climbing down that cliff. However, of course, police and her family alike still had so many questions and wanted to figure out what, if anything, led to her taking such drastic action. Now, like I said, police got a hold of Renee's phone that she used mostly for texting Braden, even though, like I said, the other phone had been thrown off the cliff. It seems like that phone was her main phone that she also used to contact Braden, but then she had a second phone that was used pretty much only to text Braden, so maybe it was after she told her mother that she was done with him. I'm not exactly sure, but they weren't able to find specific text messages off of the phone that she threw off the cliff, but they were able to go through the cell phone records and dug through the communications with Braden on the phone that they found in her car. And based on those communications and those records, they found that Braden Spiteri did not exist. The photos Renee had of who she thought was Braden were actually of a completely different person. They realized that Camila had been posing as Braden this entire time and had been involved in a deep, intimate relationship with Renee for almost 2 years. Everything Renee knew about Braden, the man she thought she loved, it was all a lie. After police came to this conclusion, they brought Camila in for questioning. She told police that Renee texted her at 5:47 p.m. on August 5th saying, "I'm sorry for everything. You will always be my best friend. I hope one day you can forgive me. XOXO." Just as a side note, this goes against what she originally told Teresa, which was that she hadn't heard from her in a long time, when in reality, she had texted her a very concerning text messages around the same time that she had been texting Teresa. Either way, at the station, she made a whole 2-page written statement about everything she knew, but she didn't make any mention of Renee's relationship with Braden. So, after she made her initial statement, the officers showed Camila the phone logs they had and straight up asked her if she was Braden, and Camila said no. She said that everyone assumes she is, and she knows everyone is against her, but all she wants to do is be with Renee. At this point, police had no further evidence to concretely prove that Camila was posing as Braden, so they let her go and continued on with their investigation. A few weeks after the interview with Camila, they were able to obtain and execute a search warrant in her home. They were initially looking for the cell phone that Camila used to pose as Braden, but they were unable to locate it. They were able to search her current phone, which contained photos of Braden on it. And then in her room, they also found multiple love letters Renee had written to Camila, which were in an envelope in her room. And then in the trash, they found multiple ripped up love letters that Renee had written to Braden. After completing the search, police spoke with Camila once again, asking her if there was anything she wanted to tell him. And that is when she started to admit to her version of what really happened. What I'm about to tell you was what Camila told police over the course of a few interviews after this initial confession. So instead of going through each interview, I'm just going to sum up everything she said all at once. Camila ended up telling officers that Renee actually asked her to create a fake profile and pretend to be Braden. At first, Camila said that she didn't know why Renee asked her to do this, But eventually she said that it was because she and Renee wanted to be together, but Renee's parents were more conservative and wouldn't approve of their relationship. So they together made this whole Braden character up to make it so that they could freely message and be in a relationship without her parents knowing. Camila said that both her and Renee went on Facebook and made the fake Braden Spiteri account. They then went to a mobile store where they purchased a cell phone for Camila to use to text her so that obviously Braden's phone number would be different from Camila's. They came up with the whole prison story together so that they could explain why Renee's family could never meet him. This whole thing was an elaborate plot designed by both of them to trick Renee's family, friends, and colleagues into thinking she was in a heterosexual relationship, all while secretly dating another woman. But of course, investigators in this case felt that the story just was not adding up. I do want to note that investigators were never able to locate the phone Camila used to text Renee as Braden, so technically they could not prove that aspect of the case. But there was still a lot more to go off of that made it clear that Renee was not in on this catfishing scheme. It was Camila behind the whole thing, tricking her best friend into having a relationship with her so that she could have her all to herself. As we heard from earlier, friends and family of Renee stated that all throughout her friendship with Camila, Camila became clingy, obsessive, and possessive. There may have been sexual contact between them, and they may have even had a short romantic relationship. That aspect is reported differently depending on who you ask. But regardless, Renee never truly saw Camila as a partner. She was her best friend, but she still had needs that she could only get in a relationship with a man. So after years of back and forth with Camila trying to get Renee to leave these men she was with and be in a relationship with her, Camila took a different approach. She made the Facebook account and started texting Renee as Braden so that she could keep her attention away from other men at any cost. This can be seen through various communications between Renee and Camila, as well as between Renee and Braden. By March of 2013, a little over a year after the start of her relationship with Braden, Renee texted Camila saying that she was happy that she could finally accept her relationship with a man and hoped that she could find someone who she could love as much as she loved Braden. She and Camila would always talk about Braden, never once indicating that Renee knew that he was the same person as Camila. Either the role-playing was just really, really top-notch, or Renee didn't know. Then, like I said, there was a month in July where Braden told Renee that he couldn't text her for weeks because of the court case. Well, that same month was when Camila went to the United States on vacation and knew that she wasn't going to be contacting Renee as often. Once again, it appears that Renee was told a lie to cover for why Braden wouldn't be able to talk to her. If the prison thing was just for the sake of telling family and friends, why did they continue to pretend over text messages with each other? Then there are many texts between Renee and Braden where they're talking about Camila. Some are good things that you might text your boyfriend about your best friend, saying how much you love her or how much she supports you, or some of the fun things you might have done together. But others were not so nice things that maybe you wouldn't want your best friend to hear about. Maybe talking some smack or, kind of debriefing about a situation that you had with your best friend that obviously would not be the most comfortable if your friend knew that you were saying to your boyfriend. And anytime Renee would say something about Camila, such as calling her abusive or mean, Braden would always advise against cutting off contact with her. He always encouraged her to stay friends with her one way or another. So again, why would Braden, her boyfriend, have such motivation for her being friends with Camila unless there was another reason? Camila was Braden. Then there were times where Braden would get really insecure and tell Renee that she better not sleep with another man, she better not cheat. But then he would turn around and tell her it was okay and even encouraged her to sleep with Camila. Again, this just does not sound like something Braden would be encouraging Renee to do if Renee knew that it was Camila all along. And of course, if it was really Braden, that's obviously not something that he seems like he would be okay with based on other behaviors that we know from their relationship. Finally, during the whole course of this fake relationship, friends and family members did actually grow suspicious that Braden was in fact Camila. They felt that the way he texted was too similar to Camila, even making the same spelling and grammatical errors as her. But anytime someone would warn her of this, she would say that there was no way. She knew that Braden was real. All of this points to the fact that Renee had no idea she was being catfished. Then, in the weeks following Renee's disappearance, investigators uncovered numerous lies Camila told in order to keep the attention off of her. Like I said, Renee texted Camila just before her death saying that she was sorry and loved her. Yet when Teresa asked her when she last heard from her, she said that they only talked earlier that day, leaving out this obvious cry for help. She also left out the messages Renee had been sending to Braden, aka her. Then, after they started searching for her, Camila took Teresa to Braden's sister's house in an attempt to find her, knowing that Braden wasn't real. Then again, as we heard earlier, she was telling Renee's family that Braden was upset and still texting them as if she were him even after Renee went missing. If she truly wanted to find her, truly knew that Renee was in on this with her, there was no reason to continue lying. It was clear that Camila knew that Renee was struggling mentally and was going to take her own life after getting that text from Braden, aka her, dumping her, and after they started searching for her. Yet, all she did was try to cover her own ass. She showed no concern for Renee or her family, continuing with her lies. She even told police that the reason she took her own life was because Renee was not happy with her home life. That may have partially been true, but it's clear that this whole relationship with Braden played a huge role in her emotional well-being, and him acting so blunt and breaking things off with her so suddenly, that all played a role as well. But that part is what Camila totally left out. We don't know everything they talked about in the moments leading to her death, but it's clear that Renee was not emotionally healthy and that Braden's attitude towards her was a large factor in that. We don't know if she found out shortly before her death that Camila was actually Braden because she isn't here to tell us. We do know that Renee told her mom that she found out the truth about Braden that day, but we also know that she told Camila that she would always be her best friend. So that kind of makes me think that she didn't know. But either way, most of her family believe that Renee took her own life because she thought her relationship with Braden was over. And in my opinion, I think Camila just got sort of tired of this whole fake relationship. I think that after her holiday in the United States, she didn't really text her very much at all. And I think she was just kind of over it. So she was like, you know what? I'm done with this, and it doesn't really matter how Renee feels because I'm bored and I'm going to be done texting her. So she just broke it off with her, knowing how she was going to take it, knowing that she was not mentally well, knowing that this could have devastating consequences, but I just don't think she cared. I think that Camila knew Renee very well after years of being so enmeshed in each other's lives as best friends. She used that to manipulate her into this relationship with Braden where she emotionally abused her for years. It was to the point where Renee had real-life men who loved her and wanted to be with her, yet she was so manipulated that she chose this online relationship with a man she had never even spoken to. To me, I think it's because Camila always knew exactly what to say to push her away just enough to then bring her back in and make her feel so miserable and confused that all she wanted was to be with this man. She thought she loved him and was willing to wait for him to be released from prison so that they could be together. To me, It's obvious that Renee had mental health issues of her own. Clearly, it's been a struggle for her for a long time. I think Renee was one of those people who relied a lot on those around her for her emotional well-being. She relied on a boyfriend or a partner for her happiness so that when that person was upset with her or mean to her, it made her feel absolutely worthless. I think Camila knew that and capitalized on that. I think Camila's catfishing drove Renee down this path, and I think she knew that. I think she knew exactly what she was doing. Do I think Camila wanted Renee to hurt herself? Not necessarily. I really don't. But I think that as this was all happening, Camila just had such disregard for Renee and her emotions. And then I think after this happened, she was so much more concerned with saving her own ass because she knew that this happened at least in part because of her. Due to all of this, with how everything happened leading to her death, and then Camila's obvious lack of remorse and refusing to show any kindness or compassion towards Renee's family, an inquest was done to see if there was any criminal action they could take against Camila. Everything that was reported in that inquest is what I've told you up to this point. And unfortunately, it was found that legally, Camila cannot be held responsible for Renee's death. There were no current laws against catfishing, and there was no evidence to suggest that Camila specifically encouraged Renee's suicide. After the inquest, though, the coroner did condemn Camila and does believe that she is responsible for what happened. As I stated, it's believed that Camila did this as a malicious attempt to control Renee and get her to stop seeing other people so that she could secretly have her to herself. Camila's true colors were shown bright as day after Renee's death, seeing as how she was unemotional and uncaring for the family, and how she told so many lies to cover for herself. Camila is truly a monster for what she did, and she can live knowing that she's responsible for her best friend's death. After all of this happened, Renee's family is pushing for laws to be created to make catfishing illegal. In the inquest done into the case, the coroner didn't mention making catfish illegal and said that further examination was needed before they can take specific action. To this day, I don't believe any laws have changed, but the family continues their fight. To me, I think that catfishing should be something that can be punished, and I think the only reason it's not is because the laws just aren't keeping up with the changes in technology. Stealing someone's identity is already illegal, so I don't understand why catfishing doesn't fit into that existing law. Camila actually used someone's photos to be Braden, and that person has come out to say that he had no idea his photos were being used. He didn't know Renee or Camila and is another innocent victim in this. He feels horrible that his photos were used in something like this, and now his face and body are associated with this horrific case, something he had nothing to do with. As far as I was able to find, the only time catfishing is illegal is when someone does it to commit other crimes like fraud when it comes to money. To me, that's not the only time that it should be punished because fraud in and of itself is a crime. So is identity theft. So why isn't catfishing counted in that? I think it should be. And I think Camila should be prosecuted for at least that aspect of it. But with that being said, that is actually all the information I have on today's devastating case. This is a different case than anything I've really covered before, but it's such an important story to tell. It's a stark reminder that your actions have consequences, and there are some things that just cannot be taken back. You all heard my thoughts on Camila's involvement in this, so now I want to know what you all think. Do you think Camila is responsible for Renee's death? If so, should she be held legally responsible? What do you think of her actions after Renee's death? And what do you think of this whole catfishing thing to begin with? Do you think Renee was somehow in on the whole Braden character? Or do you think it was all Camila's doing? And do you think it was malicious? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you liked this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Make sure to follow my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out the Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.